on their ischial tuberosities as opposed to way back here. All right. The other thing to remember is we're all pretty healthy without much back pain. So the test actually asks for you to go back as you're bringing your knees to your chest. So if I've got back pain as an example, and I'm asking a person to lay back, that can be hard. I'm asking them to do basically a sit-up, which can make your back sore. So I'm there kind of guiding them down, and the test can be modified. I can lay the person down and then bring their knees to the chest. So it can be modified. How the test is originally written is how we're going to do it. Just understand it can be a little bit challenging to do for some people. So let's have someone have a seat up here. Then we'll do 5 tests. Now on this particular one, underneath the length test, I've given you a stretch. Again, so from a therapeutic exercise, the stretches could happen in this one. So my point is, I could say, person has a positive Thomas test, give them 2 stretches for home exercise. Person has a positive, adductor length test, give them 2 stretching exercises. So we'll go through a couple of them. So just note that that's a Ther exercise component. Wow, we're ready for rain. Make it happen.
Oh, dude, I had a little football practice tonight, and this was the rain.
You're in for it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're in this position. You're going to lay back while bringing your knees to your chest again. Yep, and I'm basically here kind of helping her down. So bring both knees to your chest. There you go.
Like this?
Bring both knees up there. Grab a hold.
Oh,
there you go. There you go. Perfect. Now, if we're testing, let's say we're testing this side, we're going to hold here and just let this lay down. That's our test. All right. Now, if it goes in, she went a little bit into external rotation, or abduction. So I'm going to bring her in like that, and I'll let it down. Now again, she's basically negative, meaning it's basically parallel to the floor. Do you feel a big stretch up here?
Yeah.
So she might just relax for a second there. So she might be a person that I would still call that positive if I needed you to stretch her, right? If I said, hey, I want to include this, I would call that positive. It's not super positive. If I did this, my leg would be way up in the air. I have a very tight hip flexor, okay? Yeah, bring this one back up for me. Bring this one up. I'll show you another thing. So the second option is it could be a tight IT band, and that would be if she's externally rotated. So if I see that, I'm going to correct it, and I'm going to make a note to myself, I got to do an Ober's test. The third thing can be bent knee. If she can bend to 70 degrees or more, that means she has a negative rectus femoris tightness, okay? But if she can't bend there, meaning if her leg is way out like this, she has tightness rectus femoris. So sit up over the edge so you can take a break. So we want to make sure we got the correct technique. If you've seen on a test, what is the Thomas test for? It's for iliopsoas length. But there's some added benefits you can get out of it. You can see ITV tightness as well. You can see rectus femoris as well. And as we're going to see, if we see an ITV tightness, we would go to Ober's. If we see rectus femoris tightness, we would go to Eli's. So those are 2 tests that it would just build upon. All right? Unless you want to do if it's kind of quick and dirty and you only got a time for 1 test, you do that. You don't worry about Ober's and Eli's, but you see, okay, we might have to stretch the ITB as well. All right? So how do we do the stretching of that? We can put them in a Thomas test position. Sometimes getting in that position is not as comfortable for people, not as good. I'm going to have you move just a second so I don't kick you. You could just have a person lay off the edge of the bed like this. It's not quite the same. I'm in a modified position here. I don't want them to be way on the table like this because, again, they get way abducted. I also don't want them to fall out of the bed, right? So I want them to get as close as possible and just let their leg hang down. You could obviously do some type of lunging type of deal. So if I'm trying to stretch my left and I'm in this position, upright, again, the further I go forward, I get no stretch. The more upright I am, I get my stretch here. So that would be your home stretch. Thomas test is a home stretch. Off the edge of the bed is a home stretch. Lunge stretch is a home stretch. You could do that. You do definitely see people, go down into this position. This is, if I've got good knees and I can get down there, good thighs, I can do that. A lot of times we don't make our 70-year-old people get down like that because they're probably having a bad knee or something. All right? So let's have you lay on your side.
My side?
Yep. So we go to Thomas test and all the 3 muscles that it can do, right? This is yep.
When you ask us on the practical to do the Thomas
Yep.
test, will you say a specific muscle, or are you going to expect us to do all 3?
I'll just have you do the Thomas test, and then
Okay.
you'll see if it's positive. And it'll be interesting if they present somewhere, I'll let you go with that.
Okay.
The exercise will be something different. So my point is, you'll do the palpation, you'll do the length test. I won't ask you anything about that. You just do the length test and you do the manual muscle test. It's just in therapeutic exercise. I could say, hey, person had a positive Thomas test, stretch this. Or I could say, give them 2 exercises, one for the rectus femoris, one for the iliopsoas, which is a little bit different. We'll go over rectus femoris with Eli's test, which is called a special test here in a second. So Ober's is sideline testing IT band tightness, right? The key is we've got to get this person extended. That's the failed test here a lot. There's really about 3 different techniques to do it. Again, your book, I think how I have it written is with a knee bent. Again, that's a little older style of doing it. A little newer style is knee straight. It doesn't matter. You're going to see it's very close to the same here. I'm basically scooping her up. All right, let your leg just stay straight there. Fine. My hand here is stabilizing for extension as well as iliostabilization. So I'm kind of pushing down and pushing in, and I'm just bringing her back like so. And then how we're doing it is just letting it down. If it goes down to, now you can see in her case, this is one of those weird deals where she's not negative, but she's not positive either. So see how she's got a little bit of bounce there? Meaning she's not just going down to the table and hitting it. So she's a little bit tight. If she had a problem where I thought that was a concern, if I had already palpated and she's like, wow, that's super tender, then I would go ahead and call that positive so you would know, hey, positive Ober's, what does positive Ober's mean to me? Iliotibial band tightness, I better do some soft tissue work there, I better do some stretching there, okay? You also will see this done like this. This is how I was taught. I hold it distally here, and then I just let her knee fall. So just let your knee fall down toward the table, like that. I want her knee to touch her other knee or that depth. Kind of the same thing there. If you see a really tight person, it'll stay there. I would stay here, right? If they're a little bit loose, they fall. If they're a lot loose, they go way down like that. Obviously, she's compensating, but that's a lot loose, negative. Or you might see a person do it like this and then let their leg drop into adduction again. Same thing. She's got that little bit of bounce. So she's on all 3 of those tests. It's all the exact same test. She's all a little bit positive. I don't care how you do it. Any of those techniques works out. All basically the same. Lay to your back. If we're doing a self stretch there, you see this done sometimes in the clinic where you have the gait belt. Put the gait belt around the foot. Put the gait belt to the other hand. She pulls it across. The key here is this is not great, but it's sometimes okay for people who have back pain or balance issues. We'll show you another option in a second. The reason this is not great is because we're flexing. I just told you I want to test it in extension, and we're stretching her in flexion here. So that's why we don't want her to bring it up like this, because it's hamstring, right? So we do want her to bring it across like that, right? The alternate to that on a standing is, if I were to stand against the wall with the side I'm trying to stretch toward the wall, then I can bring that leg behind the backside so it's in relative extension, and then I can kind of do this, fall in, so I'm getting the stretch over there, right? So that's your ITB stretches, either a belt or a standing stretch. Hip extension or gluteus maximus is an easy knee to chest. We're looking for this is also easy because it's very measurable. So you're just one at a time. Pulling your knee towards your chest, and again, in our case, and I haven't gone over this well, it's passive again. So technically, I am pushing her up. I might be stabilizing here if I see this leg wanting to come, and then I can measure, is that 120 to 135 degrees. Sometimes the numbers mean something. More importantly, probably comparing to the other side is probably a better option, but if you want to get 100, if you want a number, 120 to 135 is normal. Single knee to chest, so her doing it on her own, single or double knee to chest is her best way to stretch that at home. All right?
I got a question.
Yep.
How's it hip extension when you're going into flexion?
Because you're length testing
yeah.
the hip extensors.
Gotcha.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So hip abductors. Hip adductors. And again, I threw all the names out there. I'm likely not going to say do a hip adductor length test. I'm likely to say do a gracilis length test. Same thing that we did here. I'm likely going to not say do an extensor. I'm going to say do an extensor carpi radialis length test. trying to get you guys to understand that we don't always call them just hip adductors. They have 4 or 5 names. So I could say hip adductor brevis, adductor longus. It's all the same test, all right? But just so you know, if I say a term like that, if I say sartorius or if I say gracilis, or that you know that it has a different length test to it, okay? So sartorius is not an adductor, by the way, so don't get confused with me saying that. So we're doing this type of position. So if I'm testing the left side, I'm going to bend this leg up. That just gets her back flat and stabilizes her sacrum, and it's just a passive length test of her adductors. So I'm just going to loop around, stabilize, and pull her out to the side. We're looking for 40 to 50 degrees. We can measure that here. Or we're looking for a stretching sensation in her adductors, okay? If we want to self-stretch that, set up, if you will. Yeah, set up. Like do like a butterfly stretch, you know what I'm talking about? So, yeah. So obviously this is a self-stretch. The good thing about this is it's a bent knee position. So if we got 2 joint muscles and it's crossing the knee, this is going to be a little bit different stretch than our second stretch, which would be something like this, right? Where I just go like this, where it's a straight knee stretch. So you might feel a difference between that stretch and this stretch. Just 2 different techniques that you could use, all right? So that's a hip adductor length test, all right? Now the last and final one. Now I'm not going to make you do, so remember, hear this out. I'm not going to make you do the length test or the stretch as it's written here, all right? This is kind of the book way of doing it, which is cool. I'm definitely not trying to teach you how the book, but it's just not how anyone anywhere does it, all right? But from a book perspective, you might want to know that the piriformis is an external rotator, so you might want to internally rotate to stretch it. So we're going to show you the book strategy, and then we're going to show you the real life strategy. So like I said, I'm not going to test you on that just because it's a bit confusing, all right? But just because I'm not testing you, that probably means we should know it more, just so we have an idea of what's going on here. So lay back to your back. So if we're testing this side, basically what it's telling us to do is to bring your knee toward 90, not past 90, because definitely changes past 90. And then we're going to internally rotate and adduct, okay? Now, I could or should possibly stabilize here, right? It gets to where I would maybe hook her leg like this. So what I'm doing is I'm internally rotating, but with my hand here, I'm adducting in my body, okay? And with this hand, then, I'm stabilizing. So it's kind of this type of thing. What do you feel, if anything?
Just I don't know, like a little tap right there.
A lot of people in the last class felt it right here in your hip crease because, again, you're internally rotating, so you're kind of driving your hip together. So that's a possibility. Again, how they shade to self-stretch that then is to kind of just take your hand and kind of pull it across like that, okay? So that's the kind of the self-stretch that kind of the book talks about. I'm just going to say 100% of the time when we're past 90 degrees, we're going to be in this position, which is a position of external rotation. That's why it's a bit confusing. And if I bring you up, you probably feel a stretch in your butt, right? So that's really the length test that I do in my... If I say it's positive piriformis tightness, I've done this, all right? There's not really a measurement there. It's just a, hey, does this feel different than this? Or is, when I do that, oh yeah, that's the pain. So the stretch we commonly do there is this guy. You've probably seen this done. Bring your knee to your chest, right? So that's the stretch that you do on your own. Or you see people do this, like I said, this sitting position like this, and I lean forward, right? That stretches my piriformis. Or if they can't do that, you might just have them in this position, and then they might just pull their leg across a little bit if they feel it back there. So there's a lot of options there. But those are going to be how your CI or yourself commonly stretches the piriformis, not really the internal rotation thing, okay? So we're clear on that so we're not confused. You don't have to call me the night before in a panic. You know, if you want to write on there, will not be on the practical, I'm good with that, okay? So it will not be on the practical. So don't overly stress out about piriformis length testing, all right? Go with the other 4, okay? All right, here we go. Let's